Hey y'all, thank you for joining our Beef Brunch News Update for Tuesday, November 28th. I hope everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I think it was rainy probably throughout the state over the past week or so. I know the guys will all give those updates, but here in Union Parish, we did get some rain off and on this past week, and it's been a little bit warmer the last few days too, so I know that's impacting our forages some. Vince, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you for our Central and South Louisiana update.
All right, thank y'all for having me. Yeah, it's been a wet situation here in central and south Louisiana for the most part, but not overly. I mean, we had with Thanksgiving night on Thursday night's rain and the all day rain on Saturday, we had near 4 inches, and that has really turned around some forages that were planted for grazing, wheat and ryegrass, and some clovers are starting to come out, and a lot of fertilizer. Top dress went out on ryegrass by airplane on Tuesday, Wednesday last week, and because it was really too wet to get around with a buggy. So um, a lot of cows still being culled. People are starting still palpating, getting cows before going on to ryegrass. Those non-productive cows. I think pretty much everybody's got bulls in place for the upcoming breeding season, which that'll start, here next week on. Let's start putting bulls out for a fall calving season, and but generally, everyone's feeding hay and supplementing to some degree. Some of these tubs, and there's a big demand for some of these liquid feeds, and people scrambling for feeders, and people that don't feed these liquid feeds all year long. They're doing something, and but the saving grace is it's been rather warm, seasonably warm, I should say, and so that has helped things out. Cows are staying full on probably some leftover hay and from some cases from last year, before people get into their better hay stocks moving forward. So it's been kind of mundane, just the market. It's been fairly good. Those who have held on to some springborn calves, some six weights, $1.50, $1.60 on the better cattle. Still some big runs on, down here in Kinder and Opelousas. Kinder, I think last week had right around 17, 1,800 head, something in that neighborhood, which is still a big run for this time of the year. Well, that was the week prior to Thanksgiving, so last week they didn't have a sale, but I would anticipate today their sales going to be rather big for those who were able to get cattle to the barn. But it's just kind of in limbo. People are still being cost conscious on some of these tubs, and supplements. A lot of question on making feeds and getting feed stuff in bulk. Where can they do that? And that's still not an economically advantage for our part of the world, because we don't have a lot of that. I mean, we got some corn, but some of the other products, we have PMG right here in Opelousas that have some corn gluten and some distillers grains at times, so you can do that, but it's never a consistent, whether they're going to have it or not. So, but it's just kind of waiting on to see where our ryegrass season goes, and calves, fall calves are hitting the ground, and I would say some early what we're going to call spring-born calves are being born currently. So hopefully the weather stays mild, we have a good calving season, and everybody has a good crop. But as we talked about on a couple of updates ago, there was some conception rate issues and concerns, and people are still complaining about it. That for whatever reason they might have had miscarriages. With some of the extremes we had of drought early in the spring. I did another little talk for our radio program today. We had really four extremes. We had extreme drought conditions early in the spring. We had a very wet period, then it went droughty again, and then extreme wet, like in July and August, and that put cattle under a big stress level. So I don't know, some of the local vets are thinking that there were a great deal of miscarriages, but conception rates were low, and I think y'all experienced that in some of the northern herds at the research station as well. And I know at Dean Lee there was some lot of talk on what might have happened. So just a wait and see game, and I think everybody's gotten into the holiday spirit and moving forward, and everyone's feeding hay. We get 2 or 3 frosts in our part of the world, and it's not until you get I-10 and south, those guys in the marsh, They depend on what they call that joint grass. It's a Bermuda type grass that really never dies off. So those guys are fortunate to be able to move cattle south of I-10 and into the marshy areas, and they don't need a lot of hay. They don't need a lot of ryegrass. But when we get that first frost, they have that luxury of doing that. Contrarily, for hurricane season, they got to move them somewhere north to get away from those situations. So, but that's about all I have here, and for the central and southern part of the state, it's I think everybody has pretty much liquidated cull cows that they need to get through the winter and try to cut down on their feeding expenses.
Thank you, sir. Lee, for our Northwest region.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be with y'all today. Echo a lot of what Vince has stated. We were talking before we started recording this news update that it's been an incredibly wet couple of weeks in northern Louisiana. So much so that kind of lost track on how many inches of rain we've got in a 1 week period here. It's funny how that works, during the summertime when we're all searching for rain, we keep track of every 2 or 3 tenths of rain that we get and kind of closely monitor that. And this time of the year, these big rain events will come in, and we'll kind of lose track of them. But we've gotten a significant amount, so much so most everybody has pulled out their dry rotted rubber boots out of the back of their tack sheds or from behind their truck cabs or wherever they keep them. And in my case, I had to replace them. Mine were dry rotted through, and that's been so long since I had to use a pair of rubber boots. But the ground's pretty wet. The winter forages are coming on. Seen a lot of improvement in the last couple of days as far as this ryegrass and these other winter forages, just due to the warmer conditions we've been experiencing. We had several days there where we were dipping down into the mid to high 20s, afternoon highs in the 50s and in 40s in some instances, and it really just set us back as far as our winter forages go. Just push pause, if you will, on these winter forages. But we're behind that for right now. I looked at the long range forecast, looking like we're going to stay in some pretty moderate temperatures going forward, with a pretty good bit of rain chances on out, even 10 days. They're scattered through the 10-day forecast, some pretty significant rain chances. So things are looking good from the winter forages area, so to speak. Most of the fall cattle working, I would say, is pretty well wrapped up. If not, then going back to that rubber boot comment, they're going to need them in a set of pens that's had any cattle in them, so to speak. As far as the local livestock auctions go, I would say that the runs are a little lighter up this way than what Vince is seeing down on the southern part of the state. That could be a product of we're just a touch wetter, maybe people having a harder time getting cattle out, or it could be a fact that we just saw those massive runs all through the fall time and even stretching back into the late summertime, that we've depleted our kind of supply of market ready cattle. And market ready could be a 400-pound calf on the side of a cow, all the way up to a 700-800-pound, or maybe in some instances some 9-weight cattle that have been backgrounded and are the right type and kind. There's a general sentiment that there's not as many weaned calves, backgrounded calves out there. And so when you visit with folks that do a lot of buying at these sale barns and stuff up this way, kind of feel like a rush almost to get some of these grazing weight cattle bought and straightened out and ready to go in anticipation of some wheat grazing and of course ryegrass in our part of the world coming online. Basically, that there may not be as good a supply of these lighter weight calves hitting whenever this grass comes online. And so to speak. So anyway, moral of the story is we're seeing kind of lighter runs at some of these auction barns. Some people espouse to the concept of waiting to December to market cattle around this part of the world. They'll hold off during what they perceive as the fall runs, and then they'll get cranked back up selling cattle in December. So you might see some slight upticks, starting next week once we get into December, and certainly before Christmas you'll see a pretty decent run. But folks trying to get some cattle to town before these sale barns shut down. A lot of hay being fed, a lot of questions on supplementation on cattle. I told y'all last visit about the number of inquiries we've had, I've had, and I'm sure these other folks on the call would echo it, about winter supplementation and balancing rations and everything related to feed and feeding. That trend hadn't slowed down. It's continued to be inundated with calls looking for more cost-effective ways to supplement these cows. And I'm just glad Jason's back with us. You know, he missed last update, and he's back with us this time. And I know that he's got a magic answer stored away, locked and ready to go there. He's going to be able to tell us all about how we can supplement these cows for little to nothing. But anyway, we had a good Thanksgiving, and I'm going to wrap up on this note as we close. Kind of a light report for my usual ramblings, but I just want to say how much I enjoy Thanksgiving, because we don't give thanks near enough. Not for what we've been given, not what we're blessed in. And so even though we're past Thanksgiving, I would like to hit on that just a minute. Very thankful for what I've been blessed to have in this life, and I'm thankful certainly for the industry that I'm able to be involved in. I've been involved in it most all my life. I've never known a time when I wasn't working with cattle, and it's one of the greatest industries in the world, in my opinion, because of the people. The people are what make it great. The cast of characters you run into. Those that truly make up the heart of the industry. It's a wonderful group of people. And I also want to say thank y'all. We're very blessed to have folks that watch these news updates that can put up with my rambling, so to speak, or maybe y'all just fast forward through it. But we know that there are several of you out there that listen to these news updates, watch them regularly, and we appreciate y'all. We appreciate y'all taking the time to kind of join in with us. And lastly, I want to say how thankful I am to work with a group of professionals in ag extension that I work with, specifically our beef team. We got some really committed folks that work in this in extension within the LSU Ag Center and within the beef cattle commodity, and folks that are really looking out for what's best for the producer and trying to help producer. And that's what it's all about, is helping you folks. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Ashley.
Thank you, Lee. I'm glad Jason gets to follow you up on that, but I do appreciate that, and echo everything, because I think we are very, very fortunate to be able to work with, at least on the coworker side of things, we do have it pretty good, and the producers as well. So Jason, I'll let you follow all that up and do our Northeast update. And we're so glad to have you back to do the markets.
It is good to be back. To those of y'all that know me know that October and the first part of November is livestock show season. I spend 2 weeks at State Fair, and wrapped up my tenure with the livestock educational trip. We take a group of 4-H and FFA kids showing heifers and sheep up to the North American and Kentucky. Vince got to see a little snow this year, so we got to see about a ½ inch, 3/4 inch of snow. They can keep that stuff up there with them. It's neat to look at, but it's sure even better to look at it in the rearview mirror. So we've got all that wrapped up, but it is definitely good to be back home. It was good to come back home and see a little bit of green pasture. Ryegrass, as Lee said, in the northwest part of the state, same goes in the northeast. Ryegrass pastures are looking really well. I would caution, if you are continuously grazing those pastures, be careful overgrazing that. I know it's turning green. Whenever it turns green, we want to get out there and start grazing it, but just be careful not to overgraze those forages whenever they do start coming up. So a general rule of thumb is try to keep 3 or 4 inches of stubble height there. That'll help you prevent grazing that down below that growing point, and really decreasing the yield that those cool season forages can turn out. I would, before I start into my normal markets, I'll give a couple of caveats. So number one, we don't have any feeder cattle markets to report on this week just because the last week was a holiday week. So a lot of those feeder cattle markets were shut down because of the Thanksgiving holiday. But I would mention, so reading Dr. Darrell Peel's in the cattle markets this morning from Oklahoma State, both of y'all, Lee and Vince, both of y'all have mentioned some runs. Vince, I think you specifically mentioned something about cow slaughter cow numbers. So Dr. Peel reported this morning that those beef slaughter cow numbers have ticked down a little bit. However, heifer slaughter is still rolling. So what that tells us in terms of a fundamental aspect is that, and we're still on a decline in terms of herd numbers going forward. As long as those heifers still show up in the feedlots, we know that they're not getting bred and increasing cow numbers. So as long as cow numbers stay suppressed, that should keep selling numbers, calf prices. It should continue to keep those going in our favor. So that shifts the bargaining power and the dealing power to the further down the chain to the feeder and the cow calf producer, instead of all of the power and all of the negotiations being on the slaughter side or the packer side. So it requires those packers to give a little bit more just because there's not as much out there to be had. So that's good for the cow calf producer. As we look at some of the fed prices that are currently out there right now, it still, in my mind, speaks volume that the cow calf producer and the feeder is in control right now. And we always are hesitant to say that, but just because, and you keep kicking that horse, and he after a while he knows why he's getting kicked, and we got kicked for a long time, and y'all heard us refer to them as black swan events and other events that would just pop up that would just really kick the wind or knock the wind out of the sails for our prices. But for the short term or for the foreseeable future, it looks like we're going to continue to see some good prices. Slaughter volumes for the past week were 581,000 head. That's down 93,000 head from the previous week, but we had a shortened holiday week, so that shortened the slaughter days. However, that was still 13,000 over the same week last year. Choice box beef closed the week at $254.15 a hundred. That's down $2.93, with the choice select spread of $20.37, down $4.53 from the previous week. Still running $1.27 higher than the 5-year average for the same week. This past week concluded with packers raising bids to meet sellers' asking prices. Reported in the National Weekly Direct Slaughter Negotiated Purchasers Report at a confirmed 94,864 head that were purchased through negotiated purchasing. In the Southern Plains, live purchases traded mostly $3 to $5 higher at $1.55. In the Western Corn Belt, live purchases traded $2 to $3 higher at $1.55 to $1.57. And in Nebraska, live purchases ranged $1.56 to $1.5850, with the bulk $3 to $4 higher from $1.57 to $1.58. Live cattle futures market settlements in the front months ended the week with December down 27 cents at 153.07, and February down 30 cents at 155.12. So live cattle futures ended the week down $1 to steady when compared to the week open. So again, we don't have any feeder cattle markets to report on. We'll catch y'all on the whenever we start our reporting back again. We'll catch you up on those. But at this time, we don't have any feeder cattle markets to report. In terms of futures markets on those feeder steers, so that's those 700 to 800 pound feeder steers, In the front months, they ended the week with January down 95 cents at 178.30, and March down 80 cents at 181.55. So some really, really good prices. Those feeder cattle futures ended the week generally $4 lower when compared to the week open. Looking at our futures, at our feedstuffs for the weekend in November 25th. I'll spit it out in a minute, y'all. I'm trying to wheel around in my mind how I'm going to broach Lee's comment about silver bullet or crystal ball or whatever that comment was. So I think that's a jab at an instance that I told him about the other day. I'm not for sure about that, but I don't have a silver bullet, but I can give you some good news that most of our commodities are down. That's a good thing. So about the only thing, so I'm not sure, Ashley, if you reported on rice bran for the last news update, but we have gone up a little bit on that commodity. But everything else is down a little bit, steadier down, which is a good thing. So looking at soybean meal down $1.60 at 443.80, soybean hull steady at 190, rice bran steady at 200. So that's the one that so it ran 190 a ton for weeks and weeks and months. So it has taken a jump on us. It's at $200 a ton. Cottonseed meal is down $5 at 392.50. Whole cottonseed down $25 at 360 a ton. Corn gluten feed meal, that's the 60% product, is steady at 780. DDG's down hard $20 at $270 a ton. And corn down 3 cents a bushel at 688 a bushel. Now, I think it's Vince that's made this comment before, and I'll make it again, that's current price. So if you look at some of the new crop prices on corn for next season, we're down below $6 a bushel on that new crop corn, looking at futures going into next planting season. But right now on current corn, it's still sitting at 688 a bushel. So sorry, Lee, that I didn't have any silver bullets there, but I think that's a good sign that we are seeing some of these commodities going down. Because as you said, everybody's looking for the cheapest commodity out there to feed. I don't report on gin trash, but that's a really popular feed stuff that folks put in the mixtures up here. All I would caution you on is reach out to me, Vince, Lee. Most of us probably have an analysis on gin trash coming out of different gins. Just be careful what you're getting. And at best, gin trash is a good substitute for a medium or low quality hay. I mean, that's about what it's good for, but it's pretty good for adding a filler into a ration or getting you some bulk into a ration. And for that purpose, it works pretty well. We're just happy to see these DDGs continue to come down. And we need those below $200 a ton. I don't know that we'll get there by the end of the year, probably not, but it's good to see those continue to fall hard because that's a tried and true, really good feed stuff to add into a ration. But at $270 a ton, that's still a little bit steep. But if the closer we can get that to 200, that product becomes a really good product to look at in terms of mixing into those mixed rations. So with that, Ashley, I'll shut up and turn it over to you.
Thanks, sir. So as we start to wrap up for today, a few things. So I'll go over events. We've already talked about all of them, but as a reminder, the 2022 Louisiana Forage Conference is this Friday, December 2nd, from 9 to 1 a.m. It's going to be at the State Evacuation Shelter there in Alexandria. Pre-registration is available for that online currently. So I have that website linked in the video and podcast descriptions. Pre-registration cost is $20. If you show up at the door, registration cost is $25. You do not have to be a member of the Louisiana Forage and Grasslands Council or LGCI or any of the GLCI, sorry, or any of those acronyms. You don't have to be a member to go to the conference. Everybody's welcome to come and listen. I think I said, yeah, registration cost at the door is $25. If you're interested in becoming a vendor, I don't think that it's too late to do that. You do contact Louisiana GLCI, and I've got their email in the video and podcast descriptions as well. Our upcoming Beef Brunch webinars, I've already mentioned this, but they're all pre-recorded. You can find them on lsuagcenter.com/beef brunch or our LSU Ag Center-Livestock YouTube channel. In December, so December 13th, Dr. Hay discusses improving maternal ability in beef cattle. In January, on the 10th, we have Boo Persica from campus is discussing harvesting and processing of beef. And then in February, on Valentine's Day, we have Tyler Braud talking about assessment of quality and yield grades. So all of those are set to launch on their respective dates. Again, they will not be live, but if you do have questions for any of those speakers, you can send them to me and I'll forward them on to the speakers. With that, I think that's all the events that we have to close out. So this will be our final news update for the 2022 calendar year. We had one more scheduled, but we have a conference that all the agents and specialists and researchers and everybody are at in Baton Rouge when we were scheduled to do our final news update. So this is it until January. I think January 10th will be the release of our next news update. The guys are going to be flying solo in January and February. So good luck. They'll be good. I'll be doing some of the edits and get some stuff out to y'all, but I'll be out starting this Friday through the end of February. So if you follow us on social media or any of that, and we seem like we're kind of quiet for a little bit, it's because I'm at home trying to figure out how to keep a baby alive on maternity leave through the end of February. So we'll still be with you. We'll still be sending some things out. We just probably be a little bit more quiet, at least online, than what we have been here in the past couple of months. So with all of that, again, we hope that y'all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. We hope that you have wonderful Christmas holidays, New Year's holidays, all of the things. As Jason mentioned, if you ever have any questions, reach out to any of us. We'll be happy to answer those. And we will be back with you, or the guys will be with you in January.